listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
It is 2 days after the presidential election in the United States of America, and we're going to have some fun tonight, I think. I think, because we've been throwing out the script on the last couple shows and just going off on politics.
But they, when we do that, the shows they're always freaking awesome. I love that. I do. It's
if
my
we
favorite.
do so ourselves.
It's you know what? I can say that if I want to. It's our show.
There you go. Well, Hooper will be here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I have the illustrious and outspoken David DiBiase, and we got our new buddy Cortez back there.
Yeah, I'm here.
He is throwing down the nacho soup and running the board.
Yeah, so far I'm loving Cortez. He's awesome.
Yeah, feel free, dude. At any time, all opinions are welcome.
Yeah,
pipe in.
Appreciate it.
It's actually required, I think.
Yeah, whatever makes you comfortable.
Yeah. Hey, I get very comfortable.
Okay, good. Right on.
Good. So Cortez, we might as well just start off. We're waiting for Dave. How do you feel about the election?
You know what? I'm going to be honest. Just for the record, I did vote for Hillary.
Did you?
It's okay.
I voted for Hillary. Honestly, only because I believe that she was the only one truly qualified, just given her background.
Okay,
but
so
she's
her
a career
experience.
Yeah, but she's a career politician. So, all in all, I don't believe in politics.
It's honest.
It's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
But you know what? As much as we hated Trump and the things that we said about Trump, I actually went back and did my own research. He just got a fucked up way of saying things. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But he has a real messed up way of saying things. But I think somewhere behind that thick skull, he actually means some kind of good. So I'm going to rock with it for the first couple of months. But
dude, amen, dude. You know what? This is what I was going to get at tonight is this is the kind of attitude I wish that most people had, even if they feel like they lost or were let down somehow, because again, he's gonna rock with it, dude, and that's what we got to do.
But we have no choice. There is no other choice. So continuing, I mean, things got heated. It was an ugly campaign race. Both sides were, they were countering each other. I don't know who threw out the first bad ad. Could have very well been Trump. I have no idea. But they were saying evil things about each other. And then everybody got caught up in it.
Well,
it got out of hand.
It's like this, man. And this is what's perplexing to me. And I know this comes right out of the left's playbook. This has been going on forever. But how do you reconcile responding to perceived, by the way, with more hate?
I know.
This is beyond me. It's beyond me. And what we have to really understand is that, and I'm going to read something that is really, really important, and I think people need to really pay attention to this, because I argue that it's possibly the greatest national security threat we have on the table right now.
Nice. Okay.
In my opinion. And
millennials?
No, but if we had more guys like Cortez walking around with an attitude like that, it's positive, dude. It's positive, and you know what? It gives me even more hope than... Yeah. Because really,
I've seen a lot of people that I disagree on certain issues with. I've seen a lot of people handle this with grace and dignity, and then I've seen. You know what? It's really the vocal minority, because it's definitely a smaller number. But holy crap, are these guys posting volumes?
Well, the
squeaky, hate. I mean, it's hate filled. And they're like I said, they're hating on. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not going to stand there. I voted for Trump.
Yeah.
I voted for Donald Trump. I was not going to vote until the things we uncovered, partially on this show and partially off the show, in the weeks prior to the election. I had no intention of voting. I figured the system was rigged and there was no way Hillary was going to lose. Okay? But I voted for Trump. And I will not be called a homophobe. I will not be called a racist. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm a white dude. I'm sorry. But you can't throw every label at me just because your candidate didn't win. That's not fair.
Well, it's also inaccurate, because it's like and we're both in a similar boat, right? I didn't actually realize that not only do I hate my wife because she's a woman.
Yeah, right.
I also hate her because she's an immigrant.
That's what I'm saying.
And I also hate her because she's not white, which
well,
means
cool,
I don't.
Trump's
going to
deport them all anyway. So
it's unbelievable, dude. Which is none of this is accurate. It's really a shame.
I was actually having an argument with a friend of mine today who happens to be on the opposite side. He's a smart dude, well read, and I made a choice, and I'm like, dude, my wife is an immigrant.
Yeah. It's not even a citizen.
Well, wait till they come to get her.
Oh, come on.
I'm like, dude, she's legal.
Dude,
she's
look.
legal. And she's like, well, how? She's like, what about all the illegal immigrants who are in school? I'm like, he's like, how would you feel if Howie was an illegal immigrant? I'm like, well, if Howie was here illegally, I'd say deport his ass.
He's not here illegally. So it's
I know.
Stupid
So it's a moot point.
It's so ridiculous. Look, and this is.
I mean, I think he understands that by Howie being born here, he's actually an American citizen.
You know,
but who knows?
What gets me is, when did it become a foregone conclusion that if you disagree on anything, you just simply can't be friends, you can't talk to one another anymore, you can't even be civil? This is really ridiculous.
That doesn't bother me nearly as much as how every time that you disagree with someone in a civil manner, you're immediately branded as hate speech. That's hate speech. Hate speech? What are you talking about? I'm just disagreeing with you. I like Pepsi better than Coke.
Yeah, right.
I'm not a Coke hater.
See, and that's how, for me, that's how I was able to respect Trump, because it was like, he's not hiding anything. He's telling you how he feels.
Who he is. Yep.
He's telling you how he feels. And he told you if he lost, he was going to challenge that.
Yep.
You know, so I can respect somebody who's full-blown honest, because a politician, they're trained to persuade you and to believe in something. Everybody make it a black and white thing, a rich and poor thing. It's not that. He cares about America as a whole.
I agree.
He cares about America as a whole, but he just has a really messed up way of delivering
right. He is not.
I can kind of
very
feel
diplomatic.
You on that. I can kind of feel you on that. But you know what? I think if you stand back and look at it, the things that he's going to do, and I'm going to get into this here in a minute, because I think our memory is short anymore. We often forget history. And as far as all
if we even have it correct to begin with.
Well, you know, this part we do because it's recent. But we seem to forget quickly things that did happen. And I don't know how old you are, but
27.
So you're a little young for this. But again, it'll be a good reminder.
You give me hope, man. You give me hope with your attitude.
But as far as I just and I'm fired up, dude, because I have always been a person who is vehemently opposed anything that has to do with race, to the point where I even hate identifying people.
Well, look,
like when I hear
there's one race, man. There's one race.
It drives me insane. But I'm obviously, to some people, I'm guilty already because I'm walking around a white guy.
Well, and you got tattoos,
and I'm tattooed, and I shave my head mainly because
you know?
it's gray, but whatever. Yeah. But yeah,
because it looks badass. You know.
It's unfair, and I'm really kind of, I wish that, you know what, and it's maybe just a dream. I don't know. Maybe it's just a fantasy that everybody can just get along and we can be cool, even if we disagree. But there's some things that are not arguable, like economics, like facts, like the track we're going on right now.
I don't know, man. I think you can argue facts.
Well, you can change them conveniently, but history, documented facts are facts. And I want to read this article. It was written in 2009 by Peter Ferrara, and he wrote it for Forbes magazine. And is this mic loud enough? Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, I got
you. And it's about President Ronald Reagan. Because what Ronald Reagan did as he entered the White House was, in the history of mankind, is really nothing short of a miracle. And led to a 25-year boom. These are just facts. And a lot of the things that Donald Trump's talking about as far as economics, taxes, these kind of things are very, very similar to the things that Ronald Reagan did when he was president. And I want to read this. I want you just to digest this and understand that where we are today is actually, if you include the debt into it, which I argue our national debt is our biggest national security risk we have going right now, because If that debt is called out, we're over.
We're done.
Over. It's not terrorism. It's not any. Those are all threats. I get it. Open borders is disaster. It's a threat. But the national debt and the state of our economy and the fragility of the U.S. dollar right now is really, really, I think, the biggest national threat. Because if that collapses, dude, we're done.
But if we're talking monetary, can we really call it a debt? Because we have that thing called the Federal Reserve. If they can print as much money as they want, because honestly, I don't think money or currency actually holds value. You know, it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, because the money we have now is actually illegal. When they enacted the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, which is a very evil thing, fueled by Satan himself, when you don't have a currency that is backed up by, it's not a representation of, say, an ounce of gold or something. It's not backed up by anything. It's literally fiat currency, which means at will. So when you can just print money out of thin air, you're stealing. So what they're doing when they do this is they steal money. It's the most insidious type of theft, because if you have $1,000 in the bank, you go to bed, and overnight they print $1 trillion. Well, when you wake up tomorrow, your bank account still says $1,000, but it really can only buy $600 worth of stuff, because the purchasing power was now reduced. I can't take a dollar bill out of my pocket and then rip it in half, or worse yet, make a photocopy of it and give him the photocopy. Now it's worth 50 cents. You see what I'm saying? It's not backed up by, it's literally backed up by a promise that the U.S. people,
that's why it's called the promissory note,
are going to be working and paying taxes, and that it's really illegal. So you have a good point, but printing money is not really economic growth. But the real debt is because we borrowed it from somebody else. So we owe this money.
Yeah.
And the amount
of money that we owe the Federal Reserve is arbitrary. But
well, and foreign governments,
governments we owe money to.
On paper, we owe over $20 trillion. Unfunded liabilities are approaching 210 trillion, something in this arena. There's literally not enough money on the planet to pay off our debt. So it's a huge problem. All they have to do is call us. It's just like if the bank calls your loan and says, no, you got to pay it all right now. We can't even afford to pay the interest on this anymore. It's really insane. So something needs to, the track we're on, the idea of raising taxes and all this stuff is really backwards. We're going to end up right back in 79 when we're waiting in line at the gas station. Unemployment is through the roof, double-digit inflation, et cetera, et cetera. We're really almost right back where we were
when we were kids,
when Reagan took office. So here it goes. I'm just going to read this, and I want it to sink in and think about it, because I really think a lot of the ideas that Trump has comes from Ronald Reagan. And I think that if he is the real deal, and I pray to God that he is, then we're going to see some really good stuff that's going to really enhance everybody, business, jobs, from top to bottom. And the eat the rich mentality is nonsense, because you know what? Let's face it, guys. If you take every penny from every rich person on the planet, it's not even going to put a dent in the problems we have. And then now, what are you going to do tomorrow? Whose money do you take then? This has to be organic. It has to become self-sustaining, right? So when President Reagan entered office in 1981, he faced actually much worse economic problems than Obama faced in 2009. 3 worsening recessions starting in 1969 were about to culminate in the worst of all in 1981 to 1982, with unemployment soaring into double digits at a peak of 10.8%. At the same time, America suffered roaring double-digit inflation, with the CPI registering at 11.3% in 1979 and 13.5% in 1980, 25% in 2 years. The Washington establishment at the time argued that this inflation was now endemic to the American economy and could not be stopped, at least not without a calamitous economic collapse. All of the above was accompanied by double-digit interest rates, with the prime rate peaking at 21.5% in 1980, which means people's mortgages. Can you imagine having a mortgage with like a 15% interest rate?
Wow.
You couldn't afford to live, dude. The poverty rate started increasing in 1978, eventually climbing by an astounding 33%, from 11.4% to 15.2%. A fall in real median family income that began in 1978 snowballed to a decline of almost 10% by 1982. In addition, from 1968 to 1982, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 70% of its real value, reflecting an overall collapse of stocks. President Reagan campaigned on an explicitly articulated 4-point economic program to reverse the slow-motion collapse of the American economy. Number 1, cut tax rates to restore incentives for economic growth, which was implemented first with a reduction in the top income tax rate of 70% down to 50%, and then a 25% across-the-board reduction in income tax rates for everybody. The 1986 tax reform then reduced tax rates further, leaving just two rates, 28% and 15%. Number 2, spending reductions, including a $31 billion cut in spending in 1981, close to 5% of the federal budget then, or the equivalent of about $175 billion in spending cuts for the year today. In constant dollars, non-defense discretionary spending declined by 14.4% from 1981 to 1982, and by 16.8% from 1981 to 1983. Moreover, in constant dollars, this non-defense discretionary spending never returned to its 1981 level for the rest of Reagan's 2 terms. Even with the Reagan defense buildup, which won the Cold War without firing a shot, total federal spending declined from a high of 23.5% of GDP in 1983 to 21.3% in 1988 and 21.2% in 1989. That's a real reduction in the size of government relative to the economy of 10%. Number 3, anti-inflation monetary policy restraining money supply growth compared to demand to maintain a stronger, more stable dollar value. Number 4, big one, deregulation, which saved consumers an estimated $100 billion per year in lower prices. Reagan's first executive order, in fact, eliminated price controls on oil and natural gas. Production soared, and aided by a strong dollar, the price of oil declined by more than 50%. These economic policies amounted to the most successful economic experiment in world history. The Reagan recovery started in official records in November 1982 and lasted 92 months without a recession until July 1990, when the tax increases of the 1990 budget deal killed it. This set a new record for the longest peacetime expansion ever, the previous high in peacetime being 58 months. During the 7-year recovery, the economy grew by almost 1/3, the equivalent of adding the entire economy of West Germany, the third largest in the world at the time, to the U.S. economy. In 1984 alone, real economic growth boomed by 6.8%, the highest in 50 years. Nearly 20 million new jobs were created during the recovery, increasing U.S. civilian employment by almost 20%. Unemployment fell to 5.3% by 1989. The shocking rise in inflation during the Nixon and Carter years was reversed. Astoundingly, inflation from 1980 was reduced by more than half by 1982 to 6.2%. It was cut in half again for 1983 to 3.2%. Never to be heard from again until recently. The contractionary tight money policies needed to kill this inflation created the steep recession of 1981 to 1982, which is why Reagan did not suffer politically catastrophic blame for that recession. Real per capita disposable income increased by 18% from 1982 to 1989, meaning the American standard of living increased by almost 20% in just 7 years. The poverty rate declined every year from 1984 to 1989, dropping by 1/6 from its peak. The stock market more than tripled in value from 1980 to 1990, a larger increase than in any previous decade. In the End of Prosperity, supply-side guru Art Laffer and Wall Street Journal chief financial writer Steve Moore point out that this Reagan recovery grew into a 25-year boom with just slight interruptions by shallow, short recessions in 1990 and 2001. They wrote, "We call this period, 1982 to 2007, the 25-year boom, the greatest period of wealth creation in the history of the planet. In 1980, the net worth assets minus liabilities of all U.S. households and business was $25 trillion in today's dollars. By 2007, net worth was just shy of $57 trillion. Adjusting for inflation, more wealth was created in America in the 25-year boom than in the previous 200 years." And then it goes on to contrast what was going on with the policies of what he refers to as Obamanomics, which was literally Carter-style stuff. So what is so striking about Obamanomics, I hate that word, it sounds terrible, is how it is so doggedly pursues the opposite of every one of these planks of Reaganomics. Instead of reducing tax rates, President Obama is committed to raising the top tax rates of virtually every major federal tax. Is already enacted into current law. In 2013, the top two income tax rates will rise by nearly 20%, counting as well Obama's proposed deduction phase-outs. The capital gains tax rate will soar by nearly 60%, counting the new Obamacare taxes going into effect that year. The total tax rate on corporate dividends would increase by nearly 3 times. The Medicare payroll tax would increase by 62% for the nation's job creators and investors. The death tax rate would go back up to 55%. In his 2012 budget and his recent national budget speech, President Obama proposes still more tax increases. Instead of coming into office with spending cuts, Obama's first act was a nearly $1 trillion stimulus bill. In his first 2 years in office, he has already increased federal spending by 28%, and his 2012 budget proposes to increase federal spending by another 57% by 2021. His monetary policy is just the opposite as well. Instead of restraining the money supply to match money demand for a stable dollar, slaying an historic inflation, we have QE1, quantitative easing, right? That's printing money, and QE2, and a steadily collapsing dollar, arguably creating a historic reflation. And instead of deregulation, we have across-the-board re-regulation from healthcare to finance to energy and elsewhere. While Reagan used to say that his energy policy was to unleash the private sector, Obama's energy policy can be described as precisely to leash the private sector in service to Obama's central planning, quote-unquote, green energy dictates. As a result, while the Reagan recovery averaged 7.1% economic growth over the first 7 quarters, the Obama recovery has produced only... Why is my phone... Sorry. The Obama recovery has produced less than half that at 2.8%, with the last quarter at a dismal 1.8%. After 7 quarters of the Reagan recovery, unemployment had fallen 3.3 percentage points from its peak to 7.5%, with only 18% unemployed long-term for 27 weeks or more. After 7 quarters of the Obama recovery, unemployment has fallen only 1.3 percentage points from its peak, with a post-war record 45% long-term unemployed. Previously, the average recession since World War II lasted 10 months, with the longest at 16 months, yet today, 40 months after the last recession started, unemployment is still at 8.8%, with America suffering the longest period of unemployment that high since the Great Depression. Based on the historic precedents, America should be enjoying the second year of a roaring economy recovery by now, especially since historically the worse the downturn, the stronger the recovery. Yet while in the Reagan recovery, the economy soared past the previous GDP peak after 6 months, in the Obama recovery that didn't happen for 3 years. Last year, the Census Bureau reported that the total number of Americans in poverty was the highest in the 51 years that Census has been recording the data. Moreover, the Reagan recovery was achieved while taming a historic inflation for a period that continued for more than 25 years. By contrast, the less than half-hearted Obama recovery seems to be recreating inflation, with the latest producer price index data showing double-digit inflation again, and the latest CPI growing already half as much. These are the reasons why economist John Lott has rightly said for the last couple of years, President Obama keeps claiming that the recession was the worst economy since the Great Depression, but this is not correct. This is actually the worst recovery since the Great Depression. However, the Reagan recovery took off once the tax rate cuts were fully phased in. Similarly, the full results of Obamonomics won't be until his historic comprehensive tax rate increases of 2013 become effective. While the Reagan recovery kicked off a historic 25-year economic boom, will the opposite policies, once fully phased in, kick off 25 years of economic stagnation unless reversed? It's very wordy, but I think you get the point. One of the very first things he wants to do is cut taxes, because that will instantly inject money into the economy. If you have more money to spend, right, or save or invest, et cetera, this will work. It's worked before. It will work again. Let's hope he's the real deal.
Yeah, as a business owner, I mean, whatever I wasn't sending to the government was being reinvested in my business. And I can tell you that any CEO of his own company is a much better investor in his little business, knows how to use that to grow it, instead of turning it over to some unaccountable body that obviously misspends it and leaks it in so many places. I mean, that article you just read about.
Well, the idea that you can, for every dollar in taxes, you get $1 in services is a fantasy.
Oh, absolutely.
But there are people that believe this, that think that if you give the government $1 million, they'll take that $1 million and do $1 million worth of stuff. When in fact, what they'll do is probably $10,000 worth of stuff, and they'll skim the rest.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be 2 or 3 layers of skimming. People are gonna, they're gonna.
Well, it's in the
line
form,
their own pockets.
in the form of bureaucracy, right? And this has no end. This has no end. You know how many civilian organizations we have that literally legislate? They're outside the restraints of the Constitution. This is horribly dangerous, and you're seeing now what's happening. So, what we were saying earlier is I think that the economy with the looming debt is probably the greatest national security risk we have right now, and no one seems to be talking about it. It wasn't even a.
Well, it's because they have the flim flam going on. They got us all looking at race and gender and everything else. It's Obama is a gentleman of color. Hillary's a woman. So I mean, this is all aiding and abetting their diversionary tactics to get us to talk about anything. This is why the racial divide has been promoted under the Obama regime. This is why race relations are the worst that they've ever been in this country. Because if we're fighting amongst ourselves, okay, if everyone's calling us racist and then we're upset because we're being called racist and don't feel we're racist, and we're fighting that we're not racist, if we're doing that, we're not focusing on the fact that they blow at their jobs.
And I think that's a good point because, like, you bring up, talk about Obama. Like, I tend to like the guy. Like, I would totally.
He's likable.
I would totally kick it with. I go play golf with Obama.
All politicians
I even like Bill Clinton.
Yeah, they're all charming, charismatic.
I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think that method has never worked, and a lot of the ideas that are being peddled as, Bernie Sanders is a really good example. You hear the guy talk; he's got really good points, and I agree with a lot of the stuff he says. The problem is that train of thought, and that once you go down that road, it always morphs. It always turns into China in the 1950s. It always turns into Joseph Stalin in Russia. It always turns into this. Chavez in Venezuela is a real-time example of what happens when the government takes over the means of production. People are now fighting over powdered milk in one of the agricultural centers of the planet. Yeah. They can't even grow crops anymore.
In order for socialism to work, the government must first take it from the people, then redistribute it. So you're adding a layer of movement that is technically completely unnecessary.
Well, and it's very easy for
And if anybody thinks they're better off with their stuff in government hands, they're morons.
Well, this is why, again, in this great, again, it's not perfect, all right? It's not perfect, but this is a good country we live in. And it gives us the freedom to sit here and talk about this stuff and not go to jail or shot in the head for it. Where there are places right now where you will go to jail or get shot in the head for saying the things we say.
Well, you actually can get shot in the head for some...
But you know what I mean? It's law.
But it is, yeah.
All right, we have this. We have the right to sit here and say what we want, and that. And,
we're not in Washington D.C. or Arkansas, so we're safe.
But keep in mind, the dangerous thing about socialism, and always remember that socialism is for the people. It's not for the socialist. So it's very easy for these people who are insulated from these policies that they mandate, because think about it. And this should really infuriate everybody, is if these people really believed in the public education system, they really believed in this healthcare law, they really believed in this crap that they're feeding us, why is it they don't participate in it themselves? Why is it that their kids all go to these hoity-toity private schools, but they'll sit here and pretend?
Look at the healthcare. Look at the healthcare for anybody in the government compared to what the government gives to the people.
Now, I'll tell you what, and I will be perfectly honest, if there was ever a real socialist who really meant it and was going to live, I would say, okay, you know what? All right. But there's never going to be that, because that is not how it's designed to work. If our leaders, if you want to call them that, were going to live under the same exact rules, they were going to say, okay, us too. In fact, we're going to take less. We're going to have the second, we're going to take the lower, so you guys can have the benefit of it, because after all, it's your friggin' money. If they were going to live under the same rules, then, you know what? I would believe them. But I know they're full of it, because they're not going to live under it. In fact, it's going to enhance their life, because you can see clearly there's literally a minimum two-tier, not only legal system, but everything else. There's a different set of rules for those guys than there is for us.
Well, when the Clintons amass a $250 million fortune by working in government, that sends such a horrible message, because now you do have people interested now in politics, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
looking at it as a payday. And history has shown that socialism leads to and or borders right up to dictatorship every time.
It always is a precursor to communism, because it's the only way it can work. In fact, what leads to the slaughter of all these millions of people is the very people these ideas were meant to help end up getting in the way and have to be eliminated, because it just mechanically can't work. The mechanical failure of it is it's like the intersection of the incompetent and the incapable. And the problem is then, you're stuck with, you have to, and it dehumanizes you can't be yourself. You can't be an individual in this kind of system, because as soon as you go against anything, because it's engineered, which can't be done with society, then the people that get in the way get eliminated, which is why at least 50 million people were slaughtered in China in the 1950s. Over 10 million people were starved to death and slaughtered in Russia under Stalin. And this goes
well
on.
Over 10 million.
This is what we know of. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And now you have this resurgence, and what's frightening to me is without so much is really taking a minute and understanding where these ideas came from and why these ideas are made to sound so great. It's scary that really I've heard now more than one occasion politicians saying things like we're going to have to give up some of our freedoms to improve things, and people cheer this on. You have a total communist that almost was the nominee for the Democratic Party. The guy's a Leninist. He says he's a democratic socialist, but I mean the line is so
and
thin.
Finally, thank God, okay, that there were other powers at play in this presidential election, and finally Hillary pulling off cheating bit her in the ass, because I'm telling you, I know a dozen people that would not vote for Hillary because of her credibility issues, because of her honesty issues, that would have voted for Bernie. I'm telling you, I think this is very possible we have a different outcome if Hillary hadn't screwed Bernie out of the Democratic nomination and if he ran against Trump.
Well, and I don't know
because the thing is like I said, we disagree with a lot of Hillary's politics because they're furtherances and far worse than anything Obama did. But Hillary's at least unlikable. So Hillary's unlikable to her own people as well as to the people on the other side of the aisle. The thing is Bernie is not unlikable to the left.
Or really, because I don't. Again, here's another guy I don't dislike. In fact,
I don't
when
dislike
he calls out the corruption and he calls out,
it.
He's correct.
Yes, he is.
Where he's incorrect is how to actually go about handling this problem. You would literally have to erase the Bill of Rights. You would literally have to erase the Constitution and start over with something very different, which, frankly, a lot of people died to provide us with this ability. Because in a system like that, eventually, it would be dangerous to the system for us to even offer our opinion on anything. Which is why you have in places like China, in places like Venezuela, in places like Russia, you have state-run media that's all filtered, censored. There is no freedom of the press. Why do you think it is the First Amendment is the First Amendment? It was numero uno, baby, so we can speak our minds and have a free press to expose these things. Because otherwise, you're busy, you're working, you're trying to feed your kids, you're trying to get by. Really, and anymore, you're trying not to get robbed. You're just living, and in the background, man, there are people just trying to take away everything, your ability to enjoy the fruits of your own labor. This is why those words, the pursuit of happiness, is so important. They're not there to provide you with happiness. They're there to stay the hell out of your way while you try to live your life.
Well, and I want to know it at what point. I know the generation, trust me, but at what point did it change from the pursuit of happiness to the guarantee of happiness?
No, there is no guarantee.
Well, but if you talk to generations that came after ours, they think it is a guarantee.
Well, it's unfortunate because
perseverance is out the window.
Some's
too hard, quit.
The fact of the matter is, and I'm not even going to candy coat it. In a free enterprise system, there are going to be losers. Unfortunately, not everybody can win, but you at least have the opportunity to pick yourself up and try again.
Yep.
In the opposite type of system, everybody loses. Everybody loses.
And it's sick that some people think, well, that's cool as long as we're not losing alone.
Well, and you could go on and on and on with examples, but to talk about innovation and these kind of things, was the computer invented as a result of a government mandate? Was cell phone technology created as a result of a government mandate? Was the automobile created because the government said we have to create this? No. Those things were able to be created, innovated. Companies that employ millions of people were created in spite of
it's funny,
the existence of government.
Especially representatives of, in both parties, when they're flouting or touting the merits of our governmental system, will often say things like, our government invented global positioning system and things of that nature. But actually, our government has never produced a thing.
No, they purchase it.
They make requests, and the private sector produces
of course.
it. Sometimes it is, yes, for the government.
But our government did produce at least one thing I can think of.
What?
Nuclear weapons.
No, actually, other companies did this, and they bought them from these companies.
I don't know the history of the Manhattan Project, but the Los Alamos, we talking about the 150,000.
Yeah. I mean, that seemed pretty government, right?
Well, what were the...
I mean, maybe they were stealing they were stealing Nazi technology.
Yeah, but all the defense contracts are
That's
done
what I'd like to... And
companies.
I can't speak intelligently about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if companies like Boeing and Lockheed and Rand were involved in the Manhattan Project. Because when has the government ever... Can anyone name something successful?
Well, see, look at it like this, right? What they did, the Manhattan Project, is anything is the example will always be the same. The way they do this is first take money from somebody and then give it after they skim it to somebody else. It is not a means. Government produces nothing.
Well, you know what?
It's an expense. It's an expense.
I might have to disagree with that one because actually reading here, it says July 16, 1945, the world's first nuclear weapon explosion was in New Mexico when the United States tested its first nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Right.
What I'm saying is it wasn't a United States government factory that made that. It would be people they hired.
That's what I'd like to find out. What were the were there corporations?
But they were working for the government.
We paid for it, is my point.
I understand. But
they didn't produce the money that paid for that. They took it. You see, government produces nothing. That's why it's so dangerous if it gets too big, because it literally just takes.
Well, I'm not going to argue.
Because keep in mind, if the government does produce things, that is fascism. So as soon as government takes over the means of production and price fixing and all this kind of stuff and doesn't allow any other, this is where you get Mussolini, fascismo, the whole thing. So really, they really are that's really the problem with it is somewhere along the line, the idea that government, it's statism, it's become a new religion. Somewhere along the line, people somehow get this idea that government is there to save us, when in fact, it's always been a very, very dangerous thing that unfortunately we need, right? We need a government, which is why we formed the one we have. It's not perfect. It never could be perfect. There's no such thing because we're humans, but it's supposed to be very limited and very, very, it's defined finitely on what it is they are to be doing and not to be doing. And when it spins out of control, it will, and I've said this before, it becomes its own living thing, and it will do anything to survive.
Which is exactly what has happened post Reagan.
That's right.
Starting with George Senior.
It started, I would say, the real kick in the butt was like back Woodrow Wilson type. Yeah. That's when it really started.
But I'm talking in our lifetime.
Yeah, in our lifetime,
Reagan got it more under control than it was.
It absolutely. There's no question about
this.
And
then they used the financial prosperity generated by his economic policies, and the government turned into an entity whose only purpose was to survive.
And that's why they keep saying, "Well, we need more revenue. When actually you need to stop spending so much money."
Yeah, pretty much.
You're actually spending money. If we did in our household what our government does, we would be what they call bankrupt. Because if you're borrowing 40 to 60 cents of every dollar you're spending continually, I mean, you could, if you only bring home $1,000 a week, but yet you pay out $2,000 a week or anything over that $1,000, you're upside down. Your checkbook is unbalanced. We can't operate that way. And Ron Paul had it right when he said, literally, government should not be able to do anything with money that you and I can't do.
Agreed. True.
And he was right. He's right. So, just for a second, I want to go back to what we were originally starting to talk about, because it's really bothering me, dude. It's like under my skin. I can't stand it. Just because I decided to vote for Donald Trump because I think we need to save.
Hey, we got a phone caller.
Got a phone call.
You're going to have to hold that.
Awesome.
Hey, caller. How are you doing? Who do we got on the line?
This is Todd.
Todd,
what's up, brother?
what's up, dude?
Hey, buddy.
I'm doing good. I wanted to call in. I was listening to you guys. I just want to interject the thought that the only way I can make sense of it is that they're trying to lower the U.S. economy so the globalists can merge everybody into one economy, because ours is too high right now.
Well, there's some truth to that, because there is a I don't know if it's a sentiment, but it's actually an ideology for some people that it's not fair that we're prosperous. So the idea is, and this goes into the Agenda 21, if you know about this, and then the Agenda 2030 is to take it's redistribution of wealth on a global scale, where we take money from wealthy countries and inject it into third world countries to equalize everything. When really what you do is you don't really improve anything for everybody. You just take away from people that have it.
Right, you just make it worse for the
You
people
make
who
everybody
have it.
crappy.
Yeah.
All right, good show. I'll keep listening. Thanks.
Thanks,
All right,
Todd.
thanks for calling, Todd.
So, but I got to get this, I don't know how else to verbalize this. I don't want to say it hurts my feelings, so I'm not that sensitive, but it really bothers me that there's all this, first of all, labeling people like us as our hearts are filled with hate. We're racist. We hate women. We're Islamophobes, blah, blah,
you mean
blah.
as a Trump supporter?
Et cetera, as a Christian, whatever. I mean, the labels are flying out there. And just because I decided to exercise my right as a free man in the United States of America and vote for the candidate that I thought was the better of the two.
How dare you?
Makes me a racist, a misogynist.
Well, I think that's one reason
it's ugly.
The mainstream media, in a sense, shot itself in the foot. Because let's be honest, the mainstream media, and this includes Fox News too. This is across the whole spectrum. These guys are owned by, you follow all the lines up to the top, they're owned by five ultimately individual. I mean, they're five corporations. They're run by five individual guys. These are elitists that do want a one world government. I do, just by the way that this race was covered, it's pretty obvious that I would suspect that Donald Trump was a wrench in the plans. He was not, typically when we're having an election in the country, we've got two candidates from essentially serving the same masters, Republican and Democrats.
Right.
It doesn't matter to them who wins. This is the first race, I think, in a very long time, perhaps since Kennedy.
Reagan
where
qualifies.
Yeah, you might be right. Where a candidate got in that was not one of their guys. And if you look at the way that they tried to knock Trump's feet down, people started, I think it's the same thing you were just trying to touch on, where you're seeing all these news stations using their old tricks to get people to form new opinions or to move the masses, the general thoughts of the masses in a particular direction, where the media is presenting anyone that would support Trump as a bigot or a racist or an anti-feminist or whatever. They then look in the mirror and they're like, that's not why I'm supporting Trump, and that's not who I am. And it almost, when they say this country is more divided than ever, it actually is true for once.
It is. For real.
See, but on the street level, I disagree with that. I don't think it is. Like, I want to drag you into this. Sorry, Cortez. I'm going to drag you into this. All right, if you see a video, all right, because I've seen videos like this now, where you have like 4 or 5 black dudes and they drag some white guy out of his car and beat his ass because he's a Trump supporter. Do you really believe that happened?
Honestly,
because I don't. I call BS on that.
To be honest, I can't say it's completely BS. Just from the things you see in the media, but that's about what the media makes you believe.
Yeah, because if it were true that there was this racial divide that everyone talks about, then as soon as you showed up, we should have all been, screw this dude. We are not sitting at a table with a black dude and let him run the board. We're out.
Hey, but I'm the coolest black dude.
But you see what I'm trying to understand? What I'm trying to.
So we make an exception for court.
No, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but I'm
not
that's
seeing
why
it.
In real life, I have never felt on an individual level, I have never felt racism going to or coming from on a one-on-one. And I've got plenty of friends that are black, guys at your shop.
Everyone's cool. I don't get it.
Same with all these, protected groups, minorities, Hispanics, of which, I'm a member myself. It only exists in the media
Yeah,
And
Facebook, TV,
that's why,
movies.
For me, I really
No, it's more real than you guys think it is.
You think so?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Because
It's definitely divided.
Because I
Really?
have to. Yeah, I have to be honest.
It's a self-created.
A few years ago, I felt exactly like that, and I've got a friend who happens to be black. He's a close friend of mine. I have nothing but love and respect for this guy.
Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Kenny. We're talking about Kenny. Okay. And he has brought some things to my attention that I thought were wives' tales, and he's telling me they're true, and I have no choice but to believe him.
Well, I'm not saying that hate doesn't exist. I'm not in denial.
I'm talking straight up racism.
Really?
I'm talking some of the things we think are wives' tales. They're true.
It happened at my last employer.
Really?
know. I never reported it, but I overheard the conversation.
This is so disgusting, dude.
I mean,
No,
but the thing
really
was, the
there.
party, it was, see, that's the thing. Everybody makes it such a black and white thing. There's other parties involved. It's not just a black and white thing. This was from a different race. This was from, they were like Pakistani or something like that. But I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's why I said I can respect Trump, because he said exactly what he felt.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth about it. Because me personally, we all know behind closed doors, we've all said something once upon a time.
Oh, dude, I got some of the best.
You know, that's what I'm
jokes.
saying. We've all said something once upon a time, whether we said it outside the
I
house.
want to say in public.
But that's the thing. But we know.
But I wouldn't mind. Like, I'll make black jokes even with black guys there, and if they do the same, like, that to me is more natural, and that is.
And I would rather you do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Than you not say it, and then you say it behind my back.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm saying.
If you're editing your words around your, that to me is closer to racism than if you can tell. Like, you can make Hispanic jokes against.
Maybe,
you know, all bent out of shape.
Maybe Kat was right, and I remember like a few weeks ago we were talking about this. Remember we were sitting next door talking.
It's on tape. She's going to be insufferable.
What?
No, it was off air.
Dave said Kat was right.
I think maybe she was right, and it's actually sad that she was right, not because of what, but I think what she said was, I was trying to describe to her like the way I just really wish things were, and what she said to me was kind of profound. She said, "Well, what you're actually describing is heaven," meaning it's not really possible to achieve this here on Earth, which is sad to me. It's sad because instead of like tonight we come in and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" You know, meeting Cortez for the first time. I don't go, "Oh man, here's this black dude here." You know, Jesus Christ.
Shit, we're going to talk about
it.
Trump.
Just doesn't. My brain doesn't operate that way, and does that make me different? Does that make me odd? Should I, you know?
Well, I think it definitely makes you different because
it's
because I'll tell you, some of the most racial hatred stuff I see is actually coming from white people.
Well,
where,
I get
you know,
it.
where
It's going to be.
No,
yes.
what I'm saying is there's this meme that I want to punch somebody in the face. Okay, I am so tired. I have not seen one black person post this meme today, but I have seen it 24 times. Okay, this is a bunch of angry white people posting this meme. If you voted for Trump today, make sure to explain to your LGBT, female, black, Latino, Muslim friends why they don't matter to you.
Yeah,
I have not seen one Muslim, Latino, LGBT community member. There were a bunch of females or black person post this meme. It's a bunch of white guys who are posting this meme to try and belittle me. To try and say, "Oh, you voted for Trump. You wouldn't understand. You're obviously uneducated."
Well, now this is where the divide in the country is, because I really view the people that ultimately voted for Hillary that is what I would call the indoctrinated portion of our country. These are the people that come home, turn on the mainstream news, and that's where they get their information. And by and large, the people that voted for Trump were people that probably don't get their information from the mainstream news. They don't allow themselves to be programmed like television programming does. They go out and seek out their own information. And we know, I mean, especially on this show, what happens behind the scenes, what really was in WikiLeaks, how important it really is if Donald Trump said something under his breath 12 years ago, when we know for a fact you can go find that exact same evidence for every politician that's ever been in office.
I just want to know how they didn't rig the election. How are we sitting here not talking about Hillary Clinton as president?
Well, it's my.
I mean,
I'm happy about it, but I wonder.
Do you think it was divine intervention?
I
do you
think
Do you
that.
think it was because of WikiLeaks and so many on Facebook? Every 5 minutes, you're hearing about somebody trying to press a Trump button and it going Democratic ticket. I mean, do you think that so much of that was exposed?
Look,
Dude,
the powers that were
things.
the powers we're up against
in all different states
certainly would have the means and the ability to rig
without
an election.
Doubt, without
and I frankly
doubt.
was surprised, and I think maybe it caught them by surprise because,
dude, I'm telling you, the people on I had to watch. I don't watch any of these news channels. You guys know that. You know where I get my news from. I get my news from the Bible. Okay, I'll find out what's going on through friends. Okay, so that I can. Okay, here's a topic I need to research. And then I go to the internet. I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to watch Rachel Maddow or something. They're not going to tell me what's news.
Well,
okay?
I will watch Rachel Maddow, but I'll watch 30 other sources discussing the same issue.
It's a waste of my time.
But you get a good when you can compare and contrast. You can also view what is being spoken about through omission. That is, what's important because it's not being mentioned.
Absolutely.
And that is what you get in our mainstream media. They will, yes, discuss WikiLeaks enough to say, oh, there's nothing to see here. But any person with half a brain and two eyes.
I mean, do you think that was the plan? Do you think that was Julian Assange's plan? Was that if he put that much stuff out there and if everybody was leaking all this stuff that they had no choice but to go legit?
But the mainstream media really didn't cover the substantive stuff that was
telling you, I watch CNN. I know I'm not supposed to. Dave was asking for my conspiracy card back. He even grabbed my tinfoil hat right out of the closet. Okay, but I was watching CNN because I tried to watch Fox News Network, and they had a panel of 4 conservatives and 4 liberals, and I just wanted to drive down there and on the way stop at the Walking Dead set and pick up Lucille and go hang out with them liberals because they were the most annoying people I ever heard. I could not watch Fox News Network. So I watched CNN. And not only did I feel that their coverage was very fair and unbiased during that period, you could tell on these people's faces.
CNN on election night?
They were shitting their pants. They're kind of like, looks like Trump is going to take Georgia for the first time in 7 million years.
Right.
And I mean, these people are shocked. You can tell. I mean, they're reporting the news, they're doing their job, but they are shocked.
This is what I'm saying. Their own machinery shot themselves in the foot.
Well, they're all in big trouble.
Because they start to, let's be honest about all of the polls. And again, we're playing the good cop, bad cop. Even Fox might say, okay, Clinton's only leading by 3 points.
Sure.
CNN will
It's
have
all cooked,
her
of course.
leading by 20. Whereas you go to different sources that are outside the mainstream media, and they've got Trump winning 5-1.
Yeah.
And we never hear that, and I think they became victims of their own banter, of their own
and
propaganda.
What did that anonymous poll? Okay, that anonymous poll that came out a couple of weeks before the election, where they were urging people, just like Rand Paul was urging people, don't buy it, don't sit at home, go vote. She is not winning by that much. Okay, he owes Rand Paul a 6-pack. Okay,
Dude, Rand Paul was my guy.
He was awesome.
So
awesome.
Wish that he was the guy.
And we got to finish this and take a break because Cortez is going to have a heart attack. We're going to take a break here.
It doesn't look like he's going to have a heart attack.
Oh, no, I'm good over here, man.
Well, I'm just trying to make the guys think he's doing his job.
Yeah,
see, you cutting him down. Good job.
Voted for Trump.
Now,
black and white picture.
Now I'm hating Cortez.
Oh, I just did that over here while we were talking.
I love Cortez.
My new
That's
buddy.
awesome.
That's great.
Can we have you be our guy?
You know what? I'll sit in. I'm not going to take nobody's job, but I'll definitely sit in with you guys.
Oh, you should do that.
Yeah, if Kenny
That'd be cool.
Can you imagine?
That'd be cool.
Do you think Kenny's listening?
It's fine if he's listening.
Well,
Kenny's
short.
Cortez just made a little. Just made a little video graphic while he's sitting here.
Kenny's going to like you even less nowadays.
Well,
so how much?
Because you know what? Because
I
want to get more out of Kenny. I expect more out of people.
How much
Kenny
time do we got?
For me. We don't have an issue, man.
How much time we got before break?
We're about 3 minutes over break. So, all
right.
This is probably a good place to end it.
All right.
And we'll come back and finish our rant when we're done. We're going to pay a few bills. Cortez, take it away, baby.
I want to point something out. that I think is really, really important in light of all this, all this hate that's flying around, all this racial BS. I want to make one thing crystal clear, is that it is literally us against them. They're not on your side.
Who's they and who's us in this story?
Well, I mean, depends how far up the ladder you want to go, but I'm simply referring to government versus the people. It always is that. So when they come out and claim, that we're for a certain group, insert group name here, they're lying to you. It is a lie. It is just they're compartmentalizing everybody, turning everyone against each other, and unfortunately it seems to be working at some level. But the point is that, look, man, there's good people everywhere. Most everybody's cool. There's always going to be idiots, let's face it, that, their parents are probably related and they turned into be idiots, and I get it. And this is going to be a condition of freedom, unfortunately. But it really is us against them, and if we don't stick together on the surface here, if we don't keep it together here, we literally they will run us right over. They will run us right over. They will win, we will lose, and then what are we left with? This fake hate that we have for people we don't even know.
How did multiple protests start up organically in multiple cities?
No. This is not organic.
Well,
No,
okay,
no.
It was a rigged question.
These are organized, choreographed.
Exactly. By who? Who would have?
Well, I think, and most of it, I think, comes from the ones that I saw anyway, are generated from, like, universities or areas that are... I mean, you have these community organizer people that will drum this up. They'll get these people all worked up. And you have... I mean, let's face it, man, you got people... And if I saw my daughter on TV burning an American flag, I'm sorry, man. I mean, okay, First Amendment, got it. But come on. I mean, that is just stomping out, burning effigies of Trump in the street. I mean, guys, this is not going to accomplish anything.
But I will say this. I may not like the message, but I'd much rather have free speech. And
I'm not saying
people allow them. They can burn a flag if they'd like. They can kneel during an anthem if they'd like.
I absolutely 100% agree with that. It's just like what I said before is and it's, I don't want to get into the controversial subject. It's just an example. Is like, you can bring up the idea of, say, well, really, you could insert anything here, but I'll use abortion because it's so controversial. You could literally make it legal to just murder your children. But if the culture provides that no one actually does it, it doesn't really matter if it's legal. You see what I'm trying to say? So just because it's permitted doesn't mean that, it's productive or even expedient. It's just sad to see when really this country is capable of so much more than that. Look at what we've accomplished in the short time it's been formed. We've done a lot of nasty things. I'm not going to deny that. But really, the good, I mean, it's really hard to argue with a lot of the things we've managed to make normal people. You could literally have a 6th grade education, and there was a point in time in this country where you could become a millionaire. You could invent something. You could start a business. You can work your way up. There was no precursor. It was just because we had freedom. So I just am, protesting is fine. You can protest if you want, right? I mean, it's First Amendment rights. I get it, but what is it that they're protesting?
That was going to be my next. Are you protesting the Constitution?
They're protesting,
are you protesting
democracy, what they claim to want.
So we're guaranteed. If we keep our Bill of Rights and our Constitution, we're guaranteed a certain amount of freedom. It's not anarchy type freedom. It's a certain amount of freedom. Now, it doesn't guarantee you'll like the results. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump won the election.
Yeah.
Which means whether, the electoral college disconnect to the general population, which was about a 50-50
Yeah, it was
vote, just about
$200,000 or 200,000 vote difference. Yeah, it was almost nothing.
So now there's another election where the general population majority, by slimmest of margins, voted for a candidate, ultimately did not get into office. Perhaps that needs to be adjusted. But either way you slice it, it's pretty incredible considering the wall of propaganda against this candidate over superfluous, trivial issues.
Yeah. And fabricated,
versus,
some fabricated.
Absolutely. Whereas these people, if they're protesting the fact that Hillary Clinton didn't win, I mean, do they think Donald Trump rigged an election, or he took it on it? This is what the turnout was.
No, they don't give him credit for being smart enough to do that.
At the end of the day, I think half this country, this is what I mean, I think our mainstream media lost a lot of people because obviously half of our country didn't believe what the mainstream media was saying. They revolted against it. And most of those people that are, I believe, that are involved in these post-presidential protests that have been going on for the last 24 hours or so, these people are voting based on what the mainstream media had to say to them. They don't understand behind the scenes. Like, you're upset that we didn't put someone in office, i.e. Hillary Clinton, who is essentially, except for having been declared guilty in a trial, she's a murderer. She is a drug dealer. She's involved in racketeering and in bribery. And this was almost our president, and these people are incensed because they've put social and political correctness above a good moral foundation.
They've gone beyond that.
Well, I'll tell you what.
They've gone beyond that. They have gone to selective truth, where they only bother to deal with the facts that support their cause. I mean, you've got people. I had a person on Facebook. He hasn't unfriended me yet, but I can hope, right? And he is ready to lynch Donald Trump because that one lady who dropped the charges conveniently appeared right before the presidential election saying that he raped her when she was 13.
Well, we know that was fake.
That was completely fabricated.
Yeah, it was fake.
Okay. She dropped the charges. But at the same point, he is ready to lynch Donald Trump for this. But it was proven through one of the many WikiLeaks email leaks that Hillary Clinton, not only was Bill Clinton flying on the Lolita Express and going to Sex Slave Island, Hillary accompanied him there 5 times.
Yeah.
At a minimum.
Hell, Yoko Ono.
And I mean, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yoko Ono,
I think she's
credible.
I think so.
She had sex with Hillary Clinton.
That's what she says.
So she says, I believe it.
And I mean...
she didn't go as Jane Doe. She came out herself and said this.
Well, don't you find it odd? And I saw all networks do
honestly,
this.
I don't even care about that.
Neither do
It doesn't even bother me. I don't care.
All
But
I was saying was
it
measure everybody with the same stick.
Yeah,
That's
right,
what I'm talking.
right.
It's hypocritical.
Yeah.
So why does our media absolutely dismiss the fact that Bill Clinton had? There's a young man out in this world
that's
that
his
claims
son.
to be his son, and that's our mainstream media blows that story off, gives it no weight, yet they give absolute weight to these 9 phantom women.
How many people do you think
You
are
can't
in...
see what I'm saying. That's what I mean by the
Well,
media is not fair, and I think people picked up on
Well,
that.
I think they're in trouble because how many people do you think are literally going to be in trouble, maybe legal trouble, because she didn't win? Like, there's probably their future hinged on the fact, you know what I mean? They're going to get busted in...
Oh, did you see Pedestra's face?
These guys are, they're freaking out. They're freaking out. But it sounds like I'm, dogging Obama kind of hard, and I want to kind of say something that's going to kind of be amazing to a lot of people that hear me say this. But you hear him actually give that speech where he reacted to the election results.
Yeah.
I got to hand it to the guy, dude. Showed a lot of class, and I really gained a lot of respect for him.
Even Hillary Clinton's
I really
concession
did.
speech.
Same here.
I really gained a lot of respect for that
Me
guy.
too.
He came out and said, look, this is democracy. Now it's time to get behind. And I know he can't stand Donald Trump, right? I know.
Oh, it's obvious.
They disagree completely, and that's fine. But the amount of class he showed
Yeah.
and the way he worded it, I have to really give that guy a lot of credit. That you know what, hats off to him, man. I agree. I gained a lot of respect for the guy in the last when he got done campaigning.
Well, like we agreed.
It really was cool to hear him. Finally, we get some sanity from one of our leaders in a time where people are losing their freaking minds, dude. And I thought it was awesome. I just got to give him credit for that. I mean, it was classy.
I couldn't believe how well Hillary's concession speech went.
I didn't listen to it because her voice drives me insane.
No, I listened to it. I was waiting for it, and she was just like all about peace, and this nation has to heal, and he's our elected leader, and we owe him a smooth transition, and I mean, I was like, this is the same person.
Good, and then what? Good for her too, then, because even evil people are capable of salvation, right?
That actually proves our point, though. Because I guarantee you, if she had won, Trump would not have been that kind.
I don't know about that.
And again,
because did you hear what he said about her?
I think it hurt. I think someone made him do it.
I think when
I
you
don't know, man.
look,
what I hope is that, and I pray for this, is that this unrest period, I guess when you get a participation trophy, no one remembers what it's like to lose. And it's people crying and all this craziness. I hope this wears off and everybody gets together again. And when he says, make America great again, I hate slogans. I hate that kind of stuff.
MAGA, baby, MAGA.
I really do. But you know what? I mean, I hope that happens because this is a great place. And I would hate to let my kids down.
I have renewed hope for this country.
I would hate to let my kids
too.
down. I would hate to have to sit them down one day and say, sorry, we got to get on this train and go to this I mean, things can turn quick, right? I hope everyone...
Yeah, and we're not, like we were saying on site, we're not out of the woods.
Not yet.
Because the behind-the-scenes information, which is what we specialize in, there are still forces at work
Always will be.
are working to keep Obama in office.
Or something like this, right? I mean,
and we are still very ripe for that. On this show, we said, for me personally, for me, my litmus test is going to be Inauguration Day. Who's going to be really in charge of this country after Inauguration Day? So we've got about 70 days.
Yeah.
Then I'll breathe a little bit easier, but all that is now we've been elected. Now there's a second hurdle, which is let's stay alive to actually become the president. And then Trump's going to be literally surrounded by enemies. I mean, this is going to be like...
And you're right. And we are, too, actually, because keep in mind that what is always under attack and always will be under attack is our liberty. Always will be under attack. Because our individual liberty is a direct threat to anyone who seeks power. And that's really what most of these people do. And, it's typical despotic behavior. I mean, that they treat this like an ant farm, as you see how they group us together and they refer to us as the people and the masses and all this stuff. This kind of mentality. And I contend that individual liberty is and always will be the biggest civil rights issue that we have to face. Because the individual is the ultimate minority. And that's how this government was designed to operate. That's how Jesus himself really treats everyone as an individual. It's always referred to as you in the Bible. It's not it's your own personal
you can say
situation.
Like this, there's no such thing anywhere in the Bible where people are saved by being in the right group. It's always about your individual.
It's a personal thing, and that's what people also got to keep in mind is that always keep your sights on liberty because that is what is at stake here. Because once it's gone, it is nearly impossible to get it back.
Well, this is the first time in my life that I can remember, and so let's say since roughly the 80s when you start to get, I was born in 68, so you can do the math, where there's an old quote from one of our founding fathers, offhand I don't remember now, but it was along the lines of, when you fear your government, you've got tyranny. When the government fears the people, you've got freedom.
I think it was Tommy J.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And this is the first time in my adult life I have actually felt even a whiff of the government, the powers that be. And when you say the word government, it's just too broad of a word. I'm talking about the central bankers behind the politicians we see on television. For the first time in my life, I actually suspect and hope, don't know for sure, that they actually fear a little bit.
I think they are quaking in their boots because I think
you're right.
I think they underestimated the average Joe. And I've been trying very hard over the last few days to explain this to people, and one of the people I was talking to was the absolute opposite side of the aisle. I was trying to explain to him what's different about Trump than Bush. Okay, so what's different about Donald Trump? And what's different is that we fell in during the George Bush presidency, and then during the Obama presidency. I think a lot of us really felt as individuals we were swimming against the current, and that the country was going somewhere that maybe we didn't agree with, but we just had to do our best to get along because we didn't have the power anymore to change. And what this presidency means, I mean, you know who put him in office? It's the disenfranchised. Okay? Who put him in office were the people who felt like they haven't been represented in the last, well, I mean, I'll go as far back to say in the last 4 presidents over the last 7 presidencies. Okay? It started under Senior. Okay? Republicans and Democrats alike.
Yeah.
We do not feel like we have been properly represented. And so what you have is these, finally, we got out, we got together, we swam against the current. We didn't believe the polls. Oh, I don't care if Hillary's going to win. I am taking my fat ass down and I am voting for Donald Trump. I will not listen to that voice in my head that's like, man, sleep in.
Just stay home, yeah.
Have some stinking eggs. You don't want to go stand in that line, you know? And we went and we voted now, but here's the difference, okay? I will hold him responsible. I will hold him accountable. Okay, the same people, he realizes it's a movement. He has said it. This is a movement. I am merely a part of it. The same people who put him in power, if he turns out to be Bush Sr., Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and just lie to our face and do nothing he promised he was going to do, we will cry out.
Yeah, and I think that the good thing about
time will tell
is that he actually is a guy that understands economics quite well. Yeah. I don't think he's an idiot. Now, bring up George Bush, which is interesting because if you remember, I'm sure everyone remembers, it was always the, blame Bush or, praise Obama or vice versa. But George Bush was a disaster.
Complete.
Total
he was nothing but a disaster.
Disaster.
I don't think he knew what came out of his mouth half the time.
No, he was a disaster. In fact, he was the second biggest spendthrift president, only next to Obama. Only Obama spent more of our money than George Bush. George Bush increased...
Well, actually spent our kids' money.
Well, now our grandkids' money.
Well, let me ask this. What is it exactly that Barack did not deliver on? Because the way I look at it...
No, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. I just say that what he did was very dangerous.
Yeah, because, yes, I'm a Barack supporter, but at the end of the day, he's a politician. Right. So me personally, I don't take any of them serious. Yes, we made history. We had a black president. What did he do for us? He did a little bit. But the thing is, it's like when you look back in media, when they had the Affordable Health Act and it was working, it was all good.
When did it work?
Well, the thing is...
Well, not saying that it worked, but, it was the actual free health care. Then once they start charging people, and they called it the Obama health plan, now it's the worst thing ever. Why wasn't it the Obamacare plan in the beginning?
It's not the worst thing ever because we have to pay for it. It's the worst thing ever because it's become completely unaffordable.
Well,
it's unaffordable, and then I understand. Now I see that part. Now they could have just kind of left that alone.
Well, the problem is that it was actually designed to fail. It's actually working but it was working the way they actually designed it to work. which was to fail because they want to push us to single payer, to total socialized medicine, which means that we might as well just not have health insurance because you have other systems around the world that are like this, and the people that can afford it come here to get medical care and pay for it out of pocket. But what happens to the people that can't afford it? I mean, our wives both come from the same hometown.
Go look at the VF. Go look at the Veterans.
Oh, dude,
Hospital.
the VA is this is
that's what healthcare.
This is disgusting.
That is essentially
disgusting.
That's not far from the level of healthcare you get in these countries that we hold in esteem for having free healthcare.
The VA is a perfect example of what happens to healthcare when government runs it, and it's really a shame because they are actually putting non-citizens ahead of our veterans. They're putting non-citizens ahead of our citizens. And this isn't about race or nationality or even religion. This is about economics. You just can't do that. You can't subsidize everything, and especially the VA. I mean, this is the most embarrassing thing that and honestly, another good thing, Trump addressed it.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody addressed the VA instead of shitting all over our veterans, which is horrible. He's finally going to fix it. And I'm sorry, you cannot provide amnesty before you fix the damn VA. All right? This is a big problem for me, and it should be a problem for everybody because it's not right. It's wrong. It's totally wrong.
Yeah, most of the people who need this health care, I would say the largest percentage of them picked up whatever problem that they're going to the doctor for by fighting for our freedom to call everybody a hate speaker.
And you know what? They'll continue. Those same-minded people will continue to fight for that freedom. So we have to put them first in line, dude. I mean, they need something. You know what? If we can afford as a nation to drop bombs on every damn place on the planet, come on, man. We can afford to give these guys the testing they need. Women, not just guys, I just mean people, right? Veterans are also female. But, they need surgery. They should not be waiting in line for months, dying, waiting for testing.
The quality of the healthcare is not even.
It's terrible.
It's not even. The best doctors are not going to the VA because they're not getting paid.
But unfortunately, the idea of free healthcare for all is nothing more than feel-good nonsense. It's hippie bullshit.
Do you guys know that Harvard professor that did a social study in his class? He said, I'm going to grade everyone based on a socialistic system, which means everyone is going to get the same grade, and it'll be the average of all of you. And on the very first test that came out, he had some students that kicked ass, and they got A's and B's. And like in all class, there were some students that didn't work very hard, and they got, they failed the test. So at the end of the the first midterm or whatever the first round of tests was, the average grade in the class was a C+, something like that. And what he found over the next midterms is the people that were working really hard stopped doing it because there was no incentive. The people that never worked hard never started working hard, and the average grade of the class dropped to like a D- or an E, essentially.
Of course.
And he goes, this is what happens with social. It's the water.
And that's what's dangerous about lowering the bar.
Yeah, in putting, the intention seems good, right? But what good is your health insurance if it doesn't cover anything, if there's no doctors that'll take it? So literally you're conscripting medical workers now, and that means, it's literally making them slaves. You can't ask them to provide a service for nothing. Mandate what they charge for it. Mandate. Now, I'm not saying the system wasn't upside down. When they're charging $50 for a Tylenol, this is cost sharing. This kind of thing can't continue. But
EpiPens.
To socialize medicine is so utterly dangerous because now what you have when you go to single payer is now you don't anymore have any options. You literally get what the government tells you can get. So they put age limits on things, right? If you're over a certain age, go home. We don't cover that. You need that surgery? Well, you know what? You need a hip replacement? Well, you won't die without it, so limp around forever.
Well, you know what? I can actually speak on that particular thing. Me being in the medical field, working in the hospital, doctor offices, and things like that, I'm doing insurance verification.
Okay.
Now, I've worked for employers where they gave me PPO plans through Blue Cross, Blue Shield, things like that. And I've been to hospitals, some of the better hospitals, Beaumont, Botsford, things like that, and they would not do jack shit for me on that PPO plan. But just in June, I had a case of empyema on the lung, which is a infectious pus on the lung.
Okay.
And a blood clot on the lung. I had United Healthcare through the government insurance. When I tell you that's the best care I've ever had being in a hospital stay, I would never go back to the medical that's provided by employers and things. I'm actually happy with what I got from my government insurance. And that wasn't a plan that I chose. I applied for it. They chose the plan for me because, you have a window to select something. But they gave me something. And honestly, I can't speak for all people because like the VA, I know that's a sucky system. I've been down there. I've talked to people who work there. My aunt, she works for the VA.
Yeah.
So I know how bad of a system that is. But I can't say that everything was bad with the government insurance because they literally saved my life with that insurance.
Yeah.
And I haven't received one bill.
And thank God. But the problem is that success is temporary. And the reason why I say that is because you cannot subsidize everything. So what happens with this healthcare system, what makes it a doomed failure, is it's literally a 3-tier system. And what I mean by that is the very top, people that are wealthy, it doesn't matter to them what happens with healthcare because they're insulated from it. They don't care. If their health insurance, they just don't have health insurance because if they get sick, they got the money. They're fine. They're insulated from it completely. And their tax structure doesn't provide that they pay into it at all because they literally have so many deductions, so many loopholes that they actually don't pay the same in percentage points as we do. So that's the top tier. They literally are insulated from it completely. Up and down, top to bottom, not only do they not pay for it, they don't need it. Then you have the very bottom tier, which are people that are heavily subsidized and get most of the insurance is being paid for by the middle tier, which is regular people that are busting their ass, getting taxed to death. So what ends up happening is you crush the middle because and what ends up happening is coverage will go down, the amount of available doctors will be reduced, and it will inevitably fail because economically it's a loser. It's a loser. Just like it's the perfect example of this is Social Security. Because keep in mind, they're extending these medical benefits, or their plan was to extend these medical benefits to people who are here illegally that don't contribute to the system at all. If you're just exist, you can get this coverage. Well, economically speaking, this doesn't work. It's a fantasy, much like Social Security. So what happens with Social Security now is you could pay, and this is the sad fact, you could pay into this your entire life, all right? And it's supposed to be a retirement savings plan for you. The problem is when you die, okay, when you die, your children can get your benefits only until the age of majority, right, 18. As soon as they hit 18, that money stays with government. And then what ends up happening is that money goes to somebody who never put a dollar into that system, and they can take that benefit for life and give it to their kids to the age of majority. So it's already upside down. This is mess.
Well, Social Security, that's our government handling our finances. It's absolutely underfunded, upside down, and there will constantly be pressure to be clipping the edges off of what's covered. That the age is going to keep getting older. The ability to get your money back gets harder and harder, the age of majority. So, and it'll keep happening because...
Well, pretty soon you won't even be able to. When you die, it's gone. You'll never get that money back.
At the end of the day, all of this is like talking about a game of Monopoly in a room. Like, we're all talking about the Monopoly game. But at the end of the day, I mean, do we all agree on what the number one financial problem in the United States is? Are we in agreement on this? Do you guys know where I'm going with this? The fact that we don't print our own money?
Oh, well, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the last few presidents that tried to make that a sticking point, Lincoln, Kennedy,
Yeah,
shot.
they killed him, yeah.
Do you think Trump's going to address that?
Definitely.
I think I don't know. I think that
If he does, he's a dead man.
maybe.
But
Maybe.
do you think he has enough courage to roll back the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, which is actually unconstitutional?
Well, it's totally illegal. But
It is.
anymore, everything
we're letting 13 European private families run us because we gave them the power to print money. And we know how powerful that is.
Are we talking like Rockefeller, Bilderberg?
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
No,
We're
that's in
talking
our
about-
ballpark.
And these are the people, you probably already know this. I mean, these people praise Satan, praise Lucifer.
sure.
And they are trying to bring the one world government that was talked about in the Bible to fruition. And they're doing it through social programs and through all of the, all the dynamics and mechanisms that are going. This is such a vast conspiracy, I guess is the word. I mean, although conspiracy people think it's an unproven.
Well, it's
thing.
not. It's not secret.
It's public. I mean, they're very public.
Yeah, it's
about
not.
it.
Yeah,
The
you can.
United
you can
Nations
find it.
makes it public.
Okay, so do you think there's going to be a rise in things like the concentration camps and FEMA camps and things like that? Do you think there's going to be
I think there's enough built. Do I think they're going to be filled with people?
See, that's the thing. I
Not
mean,
with
martial
Trump
law, that
president?
type of stuff?
Possibly not. With Hillary, I think that Luciferian agenda would have been fulfilled, and I think we would have been looking at the end of our country in 4 years. We're still in so much debt that you could be the best business person in the universe, and when you're playing against a rigged system where the powers you're up against are printing money, you've got to change the rules of the game. It's not going to be about where to cut taxes or where to add here. A normal business man could do that and change the fortunes of his business. So Trump is going to he didn't really talk about it in his campaign, and I totally understand why, because I think that's the kind of thing that gets presidents shot. Andrew Jackson was shot.
Yeah, no, it's a valid
Because
point.
this is their power base, and we've all we have run through that example. If I'm the banker in a little town and I'm printing money and I'm giving out loans to everyone, everyone's all happy, but I just became the king of
That's
the town. And if I don't like the newspaper in town, guess what? I'll fund 20 newspapers to drown you out. Or I'll entice some guy to take you out.
Right.
Or I'll call in your loan. I can control you. I can control what's meant. And no one knows I'm doing it. I'm just quiet. I'm behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I let the politicians be the face guys, be the fall guys. And that's the system we have. It's pretty much global at this point.
It is. Yeah. I mean, fiat currency is the way.
Fiat currency is the most evil.
It is the most insidious form of theft that there is.
When people understand what fractional reserve banking is, and you guys know what that is?
No clue.
Sort of.
So if I go and put a deposit of $1,000 in the bank, that bank only needs to keep 10% of it on hand.
Right. That's right, yeah.
And so they can loan out $9,000 other dollars, which gets loaned to people and or other banks, and they can loan it out. And this is what a derivative system is. So what you have is for every real dollar in the economy, you've got a multiple of tens of times that, in hundreds of times that, of debt that is in circulation.
Virtual debt.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is why we're in a situation where what our national debt is now, it can never, ever be repaid. I mean, do we understand that? Because
there's not enough money on the planet to pay it off.
Exactly, because all the money that's in circulation comes from the central bankers, and that's all the money that's in there. But what's owed back to them is the money that's in circulation plus interest.
Right.
So even if you took all the money out of circulation, you'd still owe the interest. There would still be debt. It's a system that it's built to fail when the time is appropriate and right for the powers that be. I just hope they don't do that to Trump, or Trump moves fast enough that he can somehow get that law repealed, and we may truly be the greatest nation again. But in there, and I don't understand all of the dynamics of how you are going to shut that system down without inciting wars with China and other countries.
China's banking on the fact that the dollar is going to collapse, and this is evident in what they've been doing with gold for at least a decade, probably longer. And they're not stupid. I mean, they know they literally, in real terms, probably have the only gold-backed currency that exists is China.
Is their currency gold-backed?
No, but it could be.
Okay.
Because what China's been doing for a long, long time is, let's say you own ABC Mining Company, all right? And what mining companies do is mine for precious metals, etc., for money. They don't really mine for the metals. That's just what they trade that for the money, right? So what China's done and been doing forever, and it's special to mining, especially gold, this is very interesting, is you can take ABC Mining Company, you go to China, and you can mine wherever, whatever you want, but there's one caveat, is you can't take a single ounce of gold out of that country. You have to sell it to the government, but they'll buy it off you for a little bit more than spot price. Now, this is ingenious because they don't even have to do anything, because the money they're using to buy it is the trillions of dollars in cash they have of ours that they've threatened to dump into the economy if Clinton didn't sign off pretty much every frickin' thing we have to China. He literally had no choice but to do that, because they would have done it. They would have just said, okay, here's $1 trillion. We're just going to dump it. It would have tanked the dollar. We would have been over with. So they're literally been amassing gold to where they've even gone so far as to create their own domestic gold bank account through making it part of the culture to save using gold. Little gold shops are popping up all over the place in China. And it's the new chic thing to do is go buy gold because that's valuable. It's safe. You can save it. They know what gold is. They know its intrinsic value. It's even biblical. Not to them probably, but it is. So what the government will then do, which our government has done, is if they need to, they'll go take it from the people. They're saving it for them. Buying it from them. It's insane. I mean, but it's not insane. It's actually so evil and insidious that I almost admire it in some sick way. Because think about it. The people buy the gold, but everything in China is owned by the state. So they're literally buying the gold from the state. All right? Then they get to keep it, so when the government needs it, they can just take it from the people. Aside from the gold they already have amassed. They probably have the largest gold reserve on the planet at this point. So they really could step in.
And where are our gold reserves?
It's probably gone. Because
actually, you look at what happened to the Federal Reserve Bank on 9/11 and how much gold was literally stolen on 9/11. You go look at what's really in Fort Knox. Not like...
Well, here's how you know that they literally don't have what they claim. Is because not long ago, this is recent history, Germany, right, after World War II, we held on to Germany's gold reserves for them. And we said we would store it and keep it safe. Germany, Merkel, so this was recent, said, hey, U.S., we're good. We would like our gold back.
And we don't have it.
And our answer was, that's going to take us maybe 7 to 10 years. And we'll just return it to you in little pieces. If you were German, Germany, wait a minute. Yeah, you can't. That's like if I said, hey, man, I park my car in your garage for 6 months. I'm going to be out of town for work. And then when I get back, be like, all right, man, where's my car? Be like, well, you know what? I'll give you the wheels this week. And then in 6 months, I'll give you the doors. It's going to be a while for the engine. I mean, you might have your complete car back in 7 years. I would look at you like you were freaking insane. You said you'd hold on to my car for me. Like you stole it. Right? Yeah. But this is literally their response is that, 7 to 10, So when the U.S. government took all the gold from its citizens, because they did this, and outlawed even having gold in your possession, it was a felony.
There was a time when that was against the law.
And you know what they did with that gold, what they used it for? They put it on a ship and sent it to Europe to pay off debt. That's what they did with it. So
if you look at what was printed on our money, you go up through the 50s and 60s, you could see that a regular dollar bill said this is redeemable for gold. But now it just says it's legal tender. You can't necessarily redeem it for anything. And this is what...
It's intrinsically worthless.
Even smart business guys, some of them don't get this. Like, you do know that there's going to be a day where our currency is It's not going to be the standard currency of the world any longer. And when that happens, no one's going to buy all your savings, all your 401k money. It's going to become worthless in a period of 24 to 48 hours.
Well, this happened in Europe in our lifetime with the formation of the European Union and when they went to the euro. And you ask anyone who had money, and was, say, Germany is a good example because they had a strong economy at the time. So they literally went to bed and they could have had 1 million Deutschmarks in the bank. And when they woke up in the morning, they had like 100,000 euro. It was the largest theft ever in recent times, and it was done with computers. So, but what other countries there ended up profiting. They went to bed with 1,000 whatever their currency is and woke up and they got 10 grand in the bank. It's like, whoa. But they got their asses ripped off so big when that happened, and people were pissed. So if the U.S. dollar fails, man, people don't understand. Don't be surprised if you end up seeing the day when you got Chinese yuan in your wallet. And you maybe started with, $100,000, and now you got like 10,000 RMB, and that's just, you just got to deal with it, And loaf of bread costs $20, and gasoline you got to wait in line for, or get a rationing ticket for it, or this is the road we're on.
Cigarettes will go down, won't they?
If you're even allowed, you may even be a capital offense if you even have tobacco on your person. They may just execute you for it.
So, Congressman Louis T. McFadden in 1932. Congressman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. The Federal Reserve Board, a government board, has cheated the government of the United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay the national debt. Mr. Chairman, speaking to his committee, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, the people of the United States did not perceive that a world system was being set up here, and that this country was to supply financial power to an international superstate. This is the Morgans and Rockefellers behind the scenes, a superstate controlled by international bankers and international industrialists acting together to enslave the world for their own pleasure. Now, this is a guy I think that was probably couched in the Bible, and he knows
what's up.
He did. And so many people that do, it's funny, but in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and up through the 60s, if you spoke out against this, you were killed.
Yeah, well, you
literally
go. What's really a good thing, you bring up, and this is recent now, and all of us know who Ron Paul is, right? Ron Paul. You heard of Ron Paul, right? Go watch some videos of him interviewing other officials, asking about auditing the Fed. And listen to their they literally, he said why we should be able to audit Federal Reserve. And they just look at him like he's insane. You got to go watch some of that.
I have.
Oh, it's just awesome.
I've seen the Federal Reserve testifying before Congress, whether it's Alan Greenspan or Ben Bernanke, basically going, "We're a private company."
Dude, there is a cool video of him.
We don't need to show you jack shit.
He lit Bernanke's ass right up one time, and I love that video because he's asking him direct questions, and the guy's got no answers. And he's like, well, hold on a second. Why can't we see the inner workings of what it is the hell you guys are doing? It's really great. And I think he asked the guy, is gold money? Is gold money? Ron Paul asked Bernanke. I call him Bernanke because he's jack off.
No, it holds way more value.
Well, gold is absolutely money, but in this guy's opinion, gold is not money. Because, you see, they don't want people to know.
They don't want people thinking that.
Well, think of it this way. If you don't think gold's value never changes, by the way, only the money it's referred to changes. An ounce of gold 100 years ago buys exactly the same amount as an ounce of gold today. The intrinsic value doesn't change.
Well, you make a good point. So we'll be back next week, probably talking about the same thing.
It'll take us a couple weeks, I think.
I think
so, too. For the next 70 days, it's going to be a hot one.
Yeah.
This has been Down the Rabbit Hole.
Something you want to say?
One question.
Yeah.
And you can think about it for next week.
Okay.
Yes or no, will we have microchips 2017?
Oh, I hope not.
I hope not.
I won't.
I won't either.
No,
better not.
No, I won't.
That too easily could be the mark of the beast, or
exactly.
a precursor to it. And I think it's an internet hoax that microchipping was in the Affordable Care Act. I've gone back and seen versions that said everyone needs to be microchipped, and then I've gone and seen the current version, which does not have that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
Well,
scary proposition,
hey,
people.
it's predicted.
So we will catch you next week. Happy hour's up next. Guys,